All Finance Committee to order at 5:31. Today we will start off on page 79, with, I believe 79 with the police. Chief Hegney, make your way to the table if you don't mind, sir.
Sure.
How are you doing?
Good. Yeah. To thank this honorable body for inviting me to present the FY27 police budget. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. And the way we've been doing is just kind of letting the department heads talk a little bit about their budget. What are some of the notable areas you want us to be aware of, where you've had maybe some increases, decreases, and just anything that you think the council should know?
Absolutely. So you can see off the bat the overtime account was reduced by $20,000 from my asking. I budgeted $10,000 per week in FY27. That's about the average we've been experiencing in FY26. Nevertheless, historically, we always go over what we're budgeted depending on our call volume, investigations, and what have you. So I would say that number is a placeholder year after year after year. But as you know, I'm very fiscally responsible with my overtime. I watch it like a hawk on a weekly basis. So although it's cut $20,000, I know I'm going to have to come back at a certain point and ask for well over that, like I had to this year. When I say well over that, I don't expect anything over $100,000, but you know,
Right.
Like I said, it all depends on what's going on with the investigations and natural disasters and God forbid murders or what have you. So
Yeah, Chief, it seems like with your overtime, there's so much you can't control, right? You're talking about like cases, natural disasters, but injuries, unexpected retirement, all play into it. Is that accurate, or?
100% counsel. What I'm experiencing, which is new the last couple of years, and I'm sure the auditor can support me on this, is the admin of FLMA leave has created some new, unique vacancies for 12 weeks at a time that we have to backfill. And also we're hiring a lot more female officers than we had in the past, and celebrating them and their families, with pregnancies and what have you. So that also there's labor leave, there's FML leave, and when we have a young generation of police officers, and their significant others are getting pregnant also, and they're having babies. So this is a new exciting area that we haven't experienced before, which does put an impact and a burden upon the overtime. But also, like you said, natural disasters, murders, protracted investigations, and what have you, certainly adds to the strain of trying to maintain that department and keep the staffing levels on a daily basis, hourly, shift hourly, and what have you. So,
Great, thank you.
there's a small cut with night differential. I'm not sure how that was determined, because the number of officers on midnights and 4 to 12 are based upon staffing levels. So if I'm short on that account, I'm just gonna have to come back towards the end of the fiscal year and ask for some funds. Longevity, that's all dependent upon who is actively in the department, who's retiring, and what have you, and the steps they have each year. So the longer you're in the department, you have gradual steps in your longevity as you increase with a number of years. So everything else in that personnel section is all contractual, and there hasn't been any contract changes as of FY26 going into FY27. If the police contract is settled, I'm sure that that personnel section will change, but there are still open contract negotiations. Any questions on services?
Chief, can I ask about the professional training? Looks like the revised fiscal 26 is almost 32. You're asking for 25. Is that, in your estimation, is that enough for what the training is? And I would think that professional training in your line of work is probably fluid and changing pretty regularly?
The professional training is actually the FTO training. So it's labeled professional training, but it should have been labeled field training officer.
Okay,
So the new kids that come out of the academy have to do 6 months with a field training officer.
yeah,
In the contract, there is an applicable stipend that goes with, I shouldn't say stipend, but I guess it would be a stipend.
It's an hourly rate
it's a-
change, like
yeah.
they get, yeah.
It's a stipend, but it's determined upon the person's, they get equivalent to 1 hour overtime per shift for training that new officer. And there's a lot that goes into it, so they have to write reports and it's almost like they become their supervisor for the shift.
Yeah.
And they not only train them, but they have to rate them, grade them, and there's a lot that goes into it. So that's why that stipend was incorporated, I think it was about 10 years ago now. But it's equivalent to whatever that officer's 1 hour overtime rate is. They don't get overtime, it's just equivalent to.
right, okay,
So,
good,
and to answer your question, it's all dependent upon how many people we have to train.
right,
So if we hire 5 people a year, 10 people a year, 20 a year, that's why it fluctuates over the years.
all right, no, that makes sense, thank you.
The heating went up by 1,000, and that is like a citywide contract, I believe, out of the mayor's office that determines that amount. I think we're going to a new vendor, so I'm sure our home heating bills have taken a shot too,
Yeah.
to say the least. The body camera storage has gone up a little over $4,000. That's typical. That's the end of our 3-year cycle, and now we'll be entering another 3 years. So that's the applicable cost with that. The shooter detection system, that's the shooter detection in the high schools for active shooters. The 3-year license has expired. We have to renew the license. So the increase is associated with a one-time fee with that license. There is some maintenance agreement associated with that has gone up, not much, but with the, what's the word I'm looking for? I had inflation.
Yeah.
That was expected. This number will go down the next fiscal year in FY28 because this is associated with that 3-year license. So you'll see a reduction in FY28 on this line item. Then data processing supplies on 558010. That is reduced by $1,000. More or less, the budget administrator met me halfway. I was asking for $2,000. This is where we purchase our ink from. So ink has gone up, and if you're buying ink, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. I may have to come back and ask for more money. I'm not sure right now, but I'm trying to be creative. We tried to go as paperless as possible to avoid printing, but there's some things that we just can't get around. And you see down in the capital section, tasers, that represents what I came down to speak with the council regarding the tasers we spoke about. That's that applicable number there. And the next item is the active shooter gear with the applicable $50,000 for that regarding my capital request in the CIP. So that represents, I think, all the increases, except the IT account. The auditor was nice enough to create an IT subscription account for me last year, or the year before, and I've been trying to right-size that account, meaning putting in, there's 3 accounts that I use. Now it's the IT subscriptions, maintenance of contract, and maintenance of software, where the maintenance of contract and maintenance software have applicable contracts. But now and that means we house the servers, but we're seeing that most of these software licensing agreements that we have are going cloud-based, and a lot of them have to do with the detectives and in their investigations, and there's other associated softwares that we're seeing they're going into the cloud, and we're not maintaining the servers, which is good for our MIS, and we don't have to replace those servers. Those servers can be, when they go, it could be anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 to replace that server. Now now we're just paying for the IT subscription to go into those servers. We don't need a contract per se, because it's more of a subscription. It's not a contract of services where they would maintain a maintenance agreement with that server that we would have in the past. So there's a lot more pros than cons associated with this, if that makes sense. But I've been trying to figure out what account I'm putting the IT subscription in, what account I'm taking it out of software, and also there's usually with this maintenance of software that we're experiencing and the subscriptions, there is about a 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5% increase with these subscriptions or maintenance of software accounts. And I know it has a lot to do with capitalism, but I pin one company or one vendor against another, like, hey, you're going up 5%. That's not cool. I'm gonna go with, this other company. And they're like, well, wait, we'll readjust it. So I've been trying to be creative that way also, because if nothing's changed on the subscription or the server and the maintenance thereof, why is it going up 5%?
Yeah.
So, and this isn't our money, it's the citizens' money. So, if that makes sense for all the other issues. And also, there is an SRO requested by the school in there that, my understanding, it's supported and funded by the school, that they want another SRO in the high school due to the staffing challenges, that if we send the officer to training, if he takes a vacation, a sick day, there is no coverage at that high school. And the second officer would also serve the middle schools. So whenever that SRO is either away at training or other associated duties that he cannot physically be in that high school, there is concern that there is no SRO there that day, and they want coverage there. So that second SRO, who would be primarily assigned to the middle schools, would leave those middle schools and go to the high school to be assigned to that high school. It's a shame that we have to have an officer in the schools, but in this day and age, I think we should be ahead of the game, if you will. That's the right term to use. Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more active shooters.
Yeah, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it,
Well,
right?
we always say, counsel, if a bad guy enters a school with a gun, I want a good guy there with a gun to kill the bad guy.
Yeah. No, you're right. Any questions for Chief? Deb?
Excuse me. Chief will change the professional service description to FTO.
That'd be fantastic. I didn't know you could do that.
Hi.
You know somebody who can do that?
I do.
Okay.
I know people. We'll do that. I think the school will be here later, and certainly if you have follow-up questions to Mason as it relates to the school resource officer, that position, the cost of that position is something that the city will take credit for on the end of year report. So that's how that calculation kind of comes into play. Funded on the chief's budget this year. Previous years, it wasn't there. It was funded on the school. It's my my limited understanding from participating in the One Budget, One City that the school's position is this is what they want. So it is in this budget, but we will take credit for that on the net school spending calculation. I don't have anything on the revolving funds. I do want to just make sure, even though we had the brief discussion for the counselor's information when Mason was here about the capital items, I do feel it's at least important to point out, while funded in the way that Mason has sort of mapped out the capital, that these items that within the chief's budget are through free cash. Yeah. One of the things that Chief Hegney did a number of years ago was a contract, a revenue generating contract for towing. And it was at that time that that contract was executed, that the 220, now it's 240 for vehicles, is in the police department budget. So that moving that off of debt over here also happened at the exact same time that the contract for towing went into place.
Yep.
So just for a little historical perspective for folks.
Appreciate that, bringing that up, because we are kind of, not 100%, but we are self-funding our police cruisers
Yep.
in that line by that tow contract. So,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna ask, if that's still the case, because I know for years it's been that way, and it's good to have that generated, but, personally, now, you don't get 100% of the tow contract, or do you?
Yeah, it goes into the general fund, but then that line item is budgeted. So it helps offset that line item.
Yeah.
It doesn't fund it 100%, but, we're trying.
Right, the expenditure, the appropriation in the chief's budget exceeds the tow contract, but in the absence of the tow contract, there was nothing.
Right.
Right, so, and I believe we're in the final, I think we have one more year in this round. I think it's
more.
like a 3-year deal every year.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a 3-year cycle, so to speak. But it is revenue generating. The other thing, it seems in the revolving fund, because I did print it, there's a substantial amount of money that comes in now for the cruiser charge, right? Which again is something that was more recent than in years past. We charge for police details, but in addition to police details, when the chief warrants that a police cruiser also needs to be there, there's a modest fee, and that does go into the revolving fund to help defray the cost of maintaining the fleet. And that's in the revolving fund. So that was another opportunity that the police department said, you know what, this is something that we can charge.
Well, I think it makes sense, and I think you talked earlier about your fiscal responsibility. Now, I knew just from serving on this body, serving with you as a police commissioner, the approach that you take. Your approach with the cruisers, I think, is important, because a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of departments will run their cruisers 24/7. And your 16 on, 8 off, is that still accurate? And
Yes.
what impact does that have?
That stretches the life of a police cruiser out to at least 3 years, if not 4. 100,000 miles is the life of a cruiser. After 100,000 miles, I would not want my immediate family member to drive one of those cruisers in a frontline patrol aspect. So it's important to note what the auditor said regarding that revolving fund. I don't have a line item in my general operating budget for maintenance of police cruisers. It all comes out of the revolving fund. So I need to keep that revolving fund healthy in order to maintain the fleet, because as the price of the cruisers keep rising, the cost of the cruiser, the equipment with the cruiser, the cost goes up. So that line item, if it does not increase, we have less opportunity to purchase cruises. Less opportunity to purchase cruises means we have aging cruises, which I need to maintain more, which means I'm using more money out of the revolving fund to maintain the cruises. So years ago, and Deb and I are old enough to remember this, that revolving fund was able to purchase all the cruises and maintain them.
Yeah.
However, funds were diverted from the state that we used to enjoy, that we no longer enjoy, that go to the state general fund from court fees or associated citations or what have you. But after an audit in the 2006, 2007-ish, those funds we no longer enjoy or receive to the city. So, and that's why we had to get creative and generate revenue to support the purchase of the cruisers. So that revolving fund was not doing it.
Yeah. And I think it's important for everyone to know is the importance of that revolving fund, as the chief talks about. Now, personally, I've said it for as long as I've been on this council, ideally, I'd like to see 100% of the tow contract go to support the department, but that's something that I'll continue to fight on my end. What questions do we have for the chief? All right. Chief, one thing I do want to say again, what I always appreciate is at the end of the fiscal year, when you have funds able and you're able to transfer, you transfer. And I think that just shows responsible stewardship. And from my perspective, I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you brought that up, because I will have a transfer coming into this honorable body. I need to purchase chairs. I don't have a line item to purchase chairs in the police department. So I wait at the end of the fiscal year and see if I can pull money together to purchase chairs. It might seem odd, but there is no line item to purchase chairs. So I need to purchase chairs. So in our chairs, unlike other chairs in the city, are used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So,
Fair point.
because our station's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You don't have a second day of close during the week.
Would be nice to put up a sign and say, call us later. It's not gonna happen though.
Today's a crime holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, can we shift gears, Chief? Do you mind going
Sure.
to animal control, talking a little bit about animal control and some of the challenges, and, you know, since swinging that over to underneath your supervision, how's that been going? What are some of the challenges you've seen, and anything from a budgetary standpoint you think we should be aware of?
It's been an interesting learning experience. I appreciate the deputy chief. He's been spearheading the oversight of the animal control, and we identified several areas that we need to be exercising best practices, and one of them being training. So I'm going to be coming back to this honorable body and asking for either a transfer from my police budget into the animal control line item for training. There is no funding for animal control training, which I just find remarkably amazing. But they do need training, and with the auditor's help this year, we're able to identify funds to get them training. This is an area that needs improvement.
So you would be able to transfer, if, as we talked about at the end of the police department, if you have funds available, you'd be able to transfer for the
Well,
funding,
ideally,
or is that something we can help you out with?
My training budget in the police department is healthy, and that,
Yeah.
and I think that is our best insurance policy, is our training line item, not our insurance line item. Because if you gotta exercise your insurance line item for legal fees, that means the boat's already sailed.
Right.
Training, I think historically has proven, and there's many reports and studies on this, that is your best insurance policy. It's making sure you have following best practices in training in many applicable areas of policing, and it's diverse and it's dynamic across the board. So, and it's evolving, it's changing. So, if this city has done anything 100% awesome for this police department, is funding the training budget. That is the best thing that this city has done. And I think these officers receive superior training due to the commitment from this honorable body and the mayor into our training fund. One thing I'm proud of that other chiefs do not enjoy. So, and I think it shows.
Well, but Chief, one thing that you've always done is you've always advocated for that training, and, you know, I think that that's a big part of it as well. And, you know, everyone talks about training and the importance of training, but I think in the environment we've been in over the last several years, I think it's really important for the police department. So, you know, I think you've done a good job there as well.
Well, I tell you, it's the support from this honorable body, the city council, and the mayor, because without you, I wouldn't be able to do it. That's just, you know, I'm not kissing butt, I'm just telling you that's the facts. I see other chiefs and they're struggling to get training for their officers because they don't have the support from their city council or their mayor, which I just shake my head because I don't understand that, because that is your first line of defense. That is your best insurance policy, is making sure that you have advanced training for your officers. So, and we need to do that with the animal control officers too. So we need to elevate that. And can I use police training to train the officers?
Only if it was a police item. But
Aren't they have law enforcement authority?
The Schedule A, which is a federal report, so all of your animal control expenses are charged to Department 292. Excuse me, and are over there. Like if it was an actual police, that's when the email I sent back, like, is it like truly like animal control, or is it a police thing? And we landed that it wasn't really police for that, your budget, and that's why we charged it to the HR department. Has a training that's available for citywide type training that's not there, and then we parse out on the government-wide financial statement certain expenses that go to the HR department like health insurance, like they get distributed on the financial statement. So there's a couple of reports that the animal control needs to stay there. It's not to say that we can't talk about it, and this obviously is part of the group that would have to say it, but on an annual basis, when the municipal council votes money for like accounting department, right, I have to have all of my expenses to accounting. Yours is a little bit more nuanced because they are falling under public safety purview now, so we can certainly talk about that in the future, but generally speaking, the answer is no. Police for police, animal control for animal control. There might be some other opportunities, Chief, in some of the revolving funds for some of their training that you may want to either look at, and we can certainly talk about that because it's been a year in transition. I do want to at least mention, as far as training goes, like the bane of our existence grant. It's a lot of work for the police department, his staff, my staff, but the chief also annually applies for and receives other training for the 911 training. Honestly, we do it, we need to, and it's just the level of paperwork and the administrative oversight for that particular grant is pretty high, and it's another example of the what the police department does in order to have a well-trained department.
That is a pain in the ass, Grant.
Well, but I think this is an interesting conversation now, right? Because I don't remember Chief Hagney coming down saying, hey, I want animal control. I think this was a gift that we gave to you, whether or not you asked for it.
With all due respect, I did get calls from city councilors and the mayor, and I said I will take it on. And,
Right.
So I look in the mirror, I don't point fingers.
No, but it's not something that you came down and said, hey, let me do it, right? So to that point is, I think that you have it now. You're taking the same approach with animal control that you do in the police department in many ways. And I think that we have to look at a way for the training because we don't have a training line item in here. I think it's important because you're dealing with animal control who's dealing with people's pets who are part of the family. They're dealing with wildlife. They're dealing with a number of different things. And I think that if it's not handled the right way, it's definitely a situation where we could be vulnerable.
There is a lot of animal investigations, animal-related investigations that now that it's under the purview of the police, I think it's going to serve those animals and those animal lovers better to have it under the police because we have the resources immediately there to. And there was a recent case that this came about that we still have 2 dogs in our custody involving animal abuse.
Wow.
That we were able to investigate very quickly, secure those dogs, get search warrants and what have you, because we were in concert together. So it does make sense. I mean, this honorable body, the city council and the mayor, I think, made a wise choice of putting animal control back under the police where it originally was. So.
Yeah, I think it was definitely, there was wisdom involved in that decision, and but I mean, we need to give you the resources that you need as well.
I've identified some areas that we definitely can improve in, and I'm trying to be nice.
Appreciate that.
They're doing a great job, but I think they need more support in certain areas.
Yep.
So, and as long as I'm doing this, I'm definitely going to advocate for them. So.
That's appreciated. Mr. Angelo.
Thanks, Councilor Delacio. I appreciate that. Obviously, I'm a big animal lover, and I think everybody knows I work with a lot of rescues and stuff, and I'm always rehoming dogs and other pets and taking care of injured animals and all sorts of stuff and everything. So you got a great staff there. I've worked closely with them over the years, and you got, unfortunately, you got Butch retiring, but I think you got a great replacement in Nadia, who's a vet tech, and I had no idea she was applying, and I knew her personally, and
Good addition.
Yeah, absolutely. Very great personality, and you get Carolyn that has just been phenomenal for so long.
She's got the biggest heart.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. So you got a great group there, and to be able to give them more training, I think it's awesome because, I'm 99 times out of 100, I'm going to go to the pet side and say it was probably negligent on the humans somehow, one way or another, and not on purposely at all times, but to hear that you're able to work towards getting some animals out out of a bad situation. I sincerely appreciate that too as well. So I think you got a great group there. So thank you very much for helping with getting some training too as well. And hopefully this body can support that too.
Yeah, if I understand, I could actually ask a request to this council to transfer money from my training account in the police to put it over to animal control. I could always do that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. That's
And,
most likely what I'll be doing,
Yeah.
so they can get the necessary training.
Mr. Tavares?
Chief, if this is maybe not the right form, just please tell me on the question. But would you be comfortable talking about what sorts of things, just generally speaking, in terms of improvement, could happen in animal control when it comes to training?
I can talk to you more offline about that, but
Understood.
there is some state mandated training, but there's also best practices in training that I think they would benefit from, even from animal care to investigatory to recognizing signs and symptoms. And I must admit I was naive as to what the actual animal control related duties are, and it's amazing. They do amazing work, and I'm surprised. We've been getting by on their raw talent. You know, we have great people that work in there, but I think we need to provide them the resources and training they need to even make our animal control facility and staff better, if that makes sense. But I'd be glad to share you with my thoughts on what particular training they need, such as the training that you were very helpful to.
And in fairness to that particular purchase order, Chief, but for the fact that the narrative and the description had enough information for me to really discern what it was, the question would never have been asked. So we could be here 5 years from now, and I could say, you're not supposed to use that money for that. And that's when you'd say, well, I've been doing it for 5 years. I'd be like, yeah, but the purchase order wasn't that clear. So your staff provides enough information on what they provide on a purchase order for me to be able to assess. This is really an animal control expense, right? And aside from reporting purposes, on an annual basis, when the municipal council gives folks an appropriation, it's for goods and services for a particular fiscal year, July 1st through June 30th of 2026 in this case, this year. So it's my responsibility to make sure that that money is used for goods and services for that year for the intent of the appropriation. So yes, the transfer could happen. The other thing that could happen is, and I can check with DOR if the council wants me to say, hey, could, with the approval of the council, could the chief access, training resources within the police department? Typically, it makes it more difficult for reporting, right? And statistical analysis of how much money does the police department need for training? How much does animal control really need for training? So I personally would prefer to keep it under the 292 and in your department in the 210. In fairness to you, as part of the budget process, I think that this was all pretty much simultaneous to your request, which is why I think the line isn't there in the budget. And I did bump into actually Butch this morning, maybe it was yesterday, I don't really remember, to be honest. Days are running together at this point. And he told me how much he actually enjoys being part of that department and how much support they're getting, and in a different aspect of looking at it and stuff. He's like, it's really great. So I do think that not only like your police division, but the animal control division enjoy, hey, we're getting support for this kind of stuff. So.
And I'm glad you said that, because I would have. I was on the assumption that I could train the animal control officers under the police umbrella, and my budget was already submitted to the budget administrator, and then this issue occurred, so I didn't have that opportunity. But I think in future fiscal years that we just populate that line item with whatever applicable number that we need identified for the training of the animal control officers, and I'm talking maybe $5,000, $6,000 a year, depending on what needs are associated that particular year, or state mandated training to regular in-service training to, they deal with Fourth Amendment issues. They're dealing with animal care and custody. They're dealing with vaccinations. It was an eye-opening.
Yeah.
So, but So I think we beat that to death.
Not yet. No, I'm just kidding. What I would say, Deb, is I guess talking to DOR, there's probably no harm in it, right? If I know
Absolutely, I
more.
can do that.
Yeah.
I do think they need to be separated. We could also move money around within that budget there. There's a couple of other funds that they could use for medical in that grouping, and if he needed in a pinch to do stuff. But what I'm hearing is that the council would be amenable, like if training funds are needed next year, and that you would be supportive of that, right?
Sure.
If that's the case, we could certainly work on that. There was, the long-term implications of not having people adequately trained between liability and or the mistake that was made and the cost of that, like, it really is cost aversion, right? So,
I'd rather pay for training than legal defense.
Yeah, 100%.
so
All right.
Not that I don't like attorneys, don't get me wrong.
we just don't like paying them.
Sadie's fine.
Yeah, I have that problem too.
But if you get a purchase order, we pay.
There you go. All right. Any other questions for the chief? All right.
Thank you.
Chief, take care.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate all you do, and thank you to you and your whole department.
Thank you very much.
Look at Gary ready. He's just like, all right, I heard thank chief, and here I come. And great time, Gary. All right, next we're gonna go to planning on page 72. Gary, how are you?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Gary.
So Gary, what we've been doing throughout this process, just as we've done in years past, we're giving the department head opportunity to talk a little bit about what's going on in their budget, what do you think is important for the council to know, and just kind of any kind of changes or anything like that.
Okay, sure. So first off, thank you for having me tonight. So my salary for the department typically is pretty straightforward. The vast majority of the funds are for salaries, overtime for the clerk, longevity. In this year, as you know, the position of the assistant conservation agent is being cut. So that reduces what I typically ask for a salary account, the 511000. So there's a reduction there. And the only other
Gary, before we move on from that position, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about cutting that position? What's the impact that's gonna have on your office, which, if I'm not mistaken, you're already pretty thin? And what happens with the distribution of work? What's happening? Can you talk a little bit about what your staffing is right now? Because I think it's important for people to understand this.
So, the position, as you know, will be cut, so we'll be down one full-time staff member. As you probably already may know, we're moving on with the new senior land use planner too, so we'll be hiring a new planner, but that position is still funded. So, we'll be breaking in at least a new senior planner soon. In terms of the work, folks, the work is the work. The burden's gonna fall on the conservation agent. For a while, we had an assistant conservation agent for administrative and clerical assistance. That then turned out to be some technical assistance as the candidate learned more about the position, so it took a little off the table for the conservation agent. Then 4 to 5 years ago, I think it was 5 years ago, we actually elevated it to a full-time position. The logic being at that time that as the assistant conservation agent moving from roughly 15 to 19 hours a week, which is considered part-time, not exceeding 19 hours, that by increasing that to a full-time position, that would take a greater role with the agent, so that more responsibility and work would be put on the assistant agent. Then that could free up time for the conservation agent / environmental planner to help more on the planning and land use side of the matters, particularly with grants, if you may. And that was working out well. So the city was picking up half that salary for the assistant. The Conservation Commission was picking up the other 50%. That worked well. I believe last year, We actually increased the city's proportion to 75%, and the Conservation Commission's went down to 25%. That then changed the salary of the agent, but because of the amount of revenue coming into the 2505 account and the 2509 account was dwindling. And in order to perpetuate that position, the city was kind enough to absorb 75% of that cost. But ultimately, that's being cut. It is what it is. We're all adults. We'll learn to work with that. Your question, however, Council, was, what does that mean to the department? So clearly, it's the same amount of work. Clearly, the work doesn't decrease. Work tends to increase, whether it's customer service, administrative assistance, grants, technical papers, technical position papers. So that'll be absorbed primarily by the conservation agent. And he and I have always worked shoulder to shoulder, and I certainly will bear some of that work as well. So, yeah, it's not just the planning department, all those departments, that are experiencing the cut. Staff has to step up.
So let me just be a little more pointed with my comments, Gary. I guess my concern is you've been kind of short-staffed now for the last couple fiscal years. Your department alone, is our good friend Frank Cook used to say, unfunded mandates. I'd say you, water, wastewater, you tend to see a lot of that. I guess my concern is having a department like yours, that when you look at your 2020, your fiscal 26 accomplishments, your department does a Herculean amount of work. And I guess I'm just concerned on the impact, the burnout impact. I know, there are family obligations in your office as well. And, Nick does a great job.
Sure does.
I've known Nick a long time, does a great job. We don't always agree, but we're always able to have a conversation about it.
It's professional, absolutely.
I would just say that is, I want to just perfectly state that I am concerned about the staff in your office.
So, thank you. Clearly, when I look at our FY26 accomplishments, when I refer back to our FY25 accomplishments, I asked the counselors to look back at the 25 and compare it to the 26, the continuum of what's coming off and what's coming online. So this isn't just a snapshot of what I expect for next year. The FY27, the FY27 objectives. But when you get a chance, I know you're all so busy, if you look at my FY25 accomplishments and compare that with the FY26 accomplishments, you will see a carryover and what is coming offline. If you look on page 73 of the budget, on the status of grant projects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 grant projects. One of them is the hazard mitigation plan. We did receive a grant, however, it's from FEMA, and it's a pass-through grant. The city doesn't actually receive the funds. The consultant is on a short list. MEMA contracted with the consultant. We expect to finish that grant-funded project, 100% grant-funded project. And once that project is completed, I know at some point I need to come down to the city, not only to present that for you to adopt it, that'll be later this month, but also that's an asset that we have to take in, and that'll be presented to the council to accept that as an asset. So, yeah, that's just on the grant fund. I will tell you, there will be we will press forward with the same intensity with grants. We didn't have a conservation assistant agent for years, and we still pursue these grant projects. It's great to have that position, but I will assert that there won't be any degradation in the workload. We will still pursue grants. I realize, the tight funds and the budgetary constraints, and because of that, and the staff as well has bought into this, that in order for me to do, or I shouldn't say me, for the staff and some of these, my department tag teams with the economic development director, but we will continue to apply for those grants, and we know that that's one way that we could pursue these, is through the grants and not coming to the mayor and the city council asking for an appropriation. I sense that, I realize that. Do I come down occasionally and ask for some funds? Of course I do. That's because maybe there isn't a particular grant available for the type of project we want to do. But I think we do a really good job of researching grant opportunities and maximizing those, which is evident in the FY26 accomplishments.
No, I'd agree with
Counsel,
that.
you
I
also
think the
mentioned about,
concern-
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Gary.
No worries.
The concern with grants, though, is, there's no guarantee that they're gonna be available in the same
Correct.
ones year after year, right? So,
Yep.
I think that's always a concern.
Counsel, you also asked about unfunded mandates, and I was gonna just kind of segue into that one too, after I got off the salaries, regarding, under the NIPD service, the 199, the 199,000, that's under my department. That is one of those unfunded federal mandates. That's one project that, the department administers. There's another, that doesn't appear on this, but we also overlook is the OMP for the SPAC landfill. We also oversee that project as well. So moving on, again, folks, have $1,000 requested for staff development, $750 for office supplies, and $1,000 for dues. So, aside from the NIPD's contract and salaries, one, two, I think I'm asking for $2,750. The dues, that would be for the annual APA membership, staff, the American Planning Association. Staff development, it's always seminars and workshops. We try to find the ones that are free to attend those. Sometimes we do have to pay for them.
So can you talk a little bit about that? It looks like there's gonna be a reduction for
Which
staff
one?
development, for dues. I'm always a firm believer of you get what you pay for, so if you're going, especially in your world where it's always changing one way or another, right? What impact will that staff development, in dues reduction, what does that mean? Is that, could that potentially bring about different vulnerabilities? How could that,
So, Counselor, you said dues, then you said staff development, or do you mean both?
I mean both.
Sure.
So dues, I understand the dues is separate than the staff development, but I think they're both equally important.
So let's talk about the dues. If the $1,000 is not sufficient for the staff, and let me talk about staff, so there are MACC dues, Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions. Those MACC dues for the staff, the Conservation Commission pays for, I think, through our 2505 account. So the conservation agents all set, they'll pay for that. The balance of the staff, again, not including the community development director, because that's the CD office, that's funded by the federal, by the block grant. So that then boils down to my position, the senior land use planner, and the planning administrator. So if the $1,000 is not enough, then I will pay whatever balance out of my pocket. Because I want to maintain my membership with the APA.
Out of your out of Gary Ration's pocket, no,
well-
or are you talking coming down to the council for funds?
No, I would pay it out of my pocket. It's not going to be a considerable amount of money. It is what it is. So that's on me. If I want to maintain my membership, that's what we would do. I think that should be enough.
It's admirable, but I don't love it,
well,
if I'm being honest.
Well, I'll be honest too, I don't like it either, but again, it's a professional association. I think it should be enough. They change their fees every so often for whatever reason, but I think I'm good, and if it is, it won't be a significant amount, and that's not a problem. I've done it in the past anyway, so. So regarding staff development, again, sure, I'd like to have the additional $500 from, instead of the 1,000 to the 1,500. Whether it's ICMA, the CTPC, Mass chapter of the APA. Those are the top three that kind of come to my mind. But again, we will optimize those funds, use those judiciously, so we can pick and choose which ones to go to for the staff development. And like I said, we also look for the free ones as well.
So what happens if they don't have that accreditation? And you talked a little bit about the accreditation, and you need to get them accredited.
No, so it's not an accreditation, it's just a membership to the American Planning
That's what I'm
Association. So the accreditation would be the AICP, the American Institute of Certified Planners. So I'm not seeking funds to do an accreditation, it's just being a member. And, you know, and part of that APA, which is really beneficial, is, you know, we get monthly magazines, we get updates on what's going on at the federal level, regional level, updates on potential federal grants, new paradigms in land use planning. So it's beneficial information. Again, we pick and choose what we then roll out ultimately through either the planning board or the zoning board to the city council for amendments to the zoning ordinance. One key one right now is parking regulations. And I like to keep an eye on what's going on, not just in southeastern Massachusetts, not just in Massachusetts, but I keep an eye on what's going on in the country. You might say, really? Yeah. I think back in the day, several years ago, when we did the TOD zoning ordinance, it's probably one of the only times that there was a disconnect between my department and the city council, but I actually wanted to go with a parking ratio of 0.8 vehicles. I was looking at examples of 0.8 vehicles per unit, sorry. And I think we ultimately settled on one, but I was looking at ordinances, one vividly I remember was from Oakland, California. So you know, we do a lot of research just to see, you know, what's happening in Attleboro, compare it to other cities and towns, and ultimately make hopefully a cogent recommendation to the council. And like I said, that was the one time I think there was a little disagreement. It's always professional, and ultimately, of course, we settled on one instead of the 0.8.
You and I didn't talk for, no, I'm just kidding. Gary, can you talk a little bit, you mentioned it a couple times about conservation pays for 25, or it'll pay for that. What revenue do they generate?
Sure. So there's the 2505 account. That's the notice of intent. That's Chapter 131 Wetlands Protection Act. When the conservation agent calculates the fee of an application, it's not a flat rate. Depending on the number of activities an applicant proposes part of a project, multiple activities have line items that we are required to charge a fee. So I'll just make up an example. Let's just say there's an application being filed and it might have 8 different aspects or elements to it. And let's just say the cost of that is $500. Between the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the DEP and the community, in this case, it's a 50-50 split. So half the fee goes to DEP, the other half gets deposited in the 2505 account. Then there's the 2509 account, which is the local wetlands protection ordinance. That's the other revenue stream that when applications are filed, I'll be honest with you, off the top of my head, I don't know what the split is with the council, with the city and the Conservation Commission. I think it's 50-50, but I can double check on that. So that's what, under the local wetlands protection ordinance, a percentage of that application fee goes into the 2509 account, and the balance, the other part, let's say it's 50% right now, goes into the general account. There's also a third application, which is the stormwater management application. 100% of that goes into this general ledger. None of that goes into a separate Concom account. So we rely on the 2505, which is notice of intent, and 2509, which is the local wetlands protection ordinance.
Sorry, I keep
That's
interrupting.
okay.
Any other questions for Gary? Deb, anything you want to call out?
A couple of just quick comments, if I may. Gary frequently says, and I think it's true and bears repeating, that sometimes getting the grant is the easy part. And it's really not easy to get the grants, but you need the staff and you need the people and you need the bandwidth to actually manage the grant once you get it. Not only the actual project itself, but then all the administrative work that comes with that. So having lost both of their part-time, CDBG, a little bit less because there's obviously different structure, but the part-time position that we really didn't talk a whole lot about, funded through the grant, went away mid-year this year. that does have an impact on the department. The changes in the department, the staff changes has an effect, right? Like you gotta start all over again and do a lot of like the unique thing to Attleboro, so that is impactful to the department.
Debbie, the reason why I didn't bring it up for the CDBG part-time is this is not part of my departmental budget, so I didn't wanna, go off on a digression, and then if a council asks, well, what's the implication, there really isn't on the,
There
that's
isn't
why I
on
didn't
the
bring it up.
budget, but I
Globally, yeah.
right, just the
Yeah.
global overall,
Yeah,
right?
thank you, yeah, okay.
So I just wanted to make the council aware of that. And then, Gary, stormwater, I know we pay the NIPDs, and I know that there's the stormwater peer review revolving and that kind of stuff. I'm just curious, and revenue generating opportunities, stormwater fees, is there, are there anything in that regard that we're not doing that we should look at as a city, or,
I don't understand your question. So when an application is filed, there's a fee.
no, I'm not asking the question correctly.
Peer review is separate?
Yep, a few
Okay.
years ago when, I think you shared, some communities charge other assessments or other expenses related to stormwater, right? Because stormwater management is going to be
Colossal.
right? And we don't charge anything really in that regard. Is that a true statement?
That's a true statement.
And it's probably been a while since something like that has been investigated at length, and it would be potentially a large undertaking, but if it's a colossal endeavor and it's gonna cost us a ton of money as a community to help remedy the stormwater issues, is that your office? Is that wastewater? Like, where does that live, in your opinion?
Sure.
Like, the review of should we? Now, whether or not we actually ever charge something is a completely different question.
Sure,
But
so-
I'm more interested in the, just the 30-second, 10,000 foot, this is where you'd at least start that conversation.
Sure. So Debbie also mentioned wastewater. So we have two NIPD's permits, National Pollution Discharge and Elimination System, federal requirement. The wastewater department has its own permitting for wastewater, and the general city, if you may, has its separate NIPD's permit. That started, the genesis of that, I think, goes back to about 2000, 2001. So Department of Planning and Land Use, albeit you might say, well, it's drainage, why isn't that with the Public Works Department for one reason or another? I don't recall, but that was placed in the Department of Planning and Development. And we administer annually, and this is gonna go on for the foreseeable future. Identifying illicit connections and disconnecting those, so that one aspect of this, why we're very fortunate in the city and a lot of communities aren't, we have a dual system. We have a separate sewer system and a separate drainage system, so that's huge right out of the gate. Other communities have a combined system, which is a nightmare. Nonetheless, there have been seminars and workshops that we've attended, actually Public Works has attended, I've attended a few, Nick certainly has attended his share of workshops on what is called a stormwater utility. And I think the town of Reading kind of dipped its toe in that and started to determine, I think they drafted an ordinance, but it never got passed. I think it's a city. I said a town, I think it's a city, but nonetheless, it either went to council or town meeting, and it's still in a holding pattern. I'm not familiar of any community in the Commonwealth that's actually adopted a stormwater utility. I will tell you, we have looked into it only because we're responsible to do that. We can't just ignore it and stick our head into the ground. It's not it's a somewhat of a delicate matter to talk about. But we've researched it, we've attended seminars. I actually even solicited a proposal of what it would take to begin the dialogue, let alone any assessment. That would be ultimately, if this ever was created years down the line, where there is a revenue stream coming in, that would be a dedicated, I don't know, I'm going to use this somewhat blindly, this term, an enterprise zone, where those funds would be deposited into a stormwater enterprise, and that it would be used to 100% for stormwater management and maintenance, i.e. the purchase potentially of a Vector truck. Now, I know the city owns a Vector truck, I think the wastewater department does, but you can't commingle a Vector truck that's used for sewage for drainage because of the poisons and chemicals. So we can't just say, well, why don't we just use the wastewater? You can't do that, that's illegal. So it could be, I mean, generating the revenue could be used to, for example, buy a Vector truck dedicated solely for stormwater, to eradicate a lot of the antiquated system that we have, i.e. what we experienced a couple of years ago down on Tomlinson Avenue, for example. 2-inch pipes going into 4-inch pipes going into 2-inch pipes going into 6-inch pipes, go 45-degree angled pipes, cracks, and you gotta clean all that up. Catch basins, cammering, cleaning out detention basins. I think what Nick and I have accomplished or are trying to accomplish with 2 grants right now, the BRIC grant and the MVP grant. Look, it's not gonna move the needle significantly where we're gonna notice improvements within a year or 2, but we have to start somewhere, so I think we are moving that needle. But more has to be done. And one way to help fund that, as Debbie was pointing to, is called the stormwater utility. But it's in the infancy, and we're just thinking about it right now. And it's really with my department. Of course, we include Public Works in that. I mean, ultimately, they would have to implement that. But again, why it was put in my department, I really don't recall. But we've been administering it ever since we've got the first permit, because we're actually on our 2nd permit right now. But that mechanism, Debbie, and to the council does not exist. There is no mechanism. So, for example, the $199,000, conceivably would that be an eligible cost from that stormwater utility? Sure, it would be, but right now it comes out of the general operating budget.
And I know it's really early in its infancy and stuff like that, but part of my goal as participating this year is kind of point out like these, not today, and it would take a long time, and it may be something that the city ultimately doesn't want to pursue, but this is $199,000 here. There's other capital expenses that are, live elsewhere, and at least to bring it to the forefront to say it's something that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I think given where
that
we're
was
at-
part of my role that you guys asked me to, and I just know that
Yeah.
nifty, so I figured I'd mention it. So
Well,
that's it.
But that experience that you bring, that's why this is so valuable, right? To have these discussions, because right now, we're faced with dealing with what's in front of us, but,
Yeah.
as I've said a million times, if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. We have to be creative. We have to look at new revenue streams that are coming in, and how do we generate new revenue to offset some of the capital expenses, for instance? And I think the example you used about commingling the Vector trucks, it's an important piece that a lot of people might not realize. So I think this is the right discussion to have.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I didn't want to use this opportunity as a platform to advocate for new revenue streams. I wanted to stick by the request of the
I don't want
council.
your budget hearing to be an opportunity to advocate for new revenue streams.
Because
I think it's a
that's not
perfect
fair,
opportunity.
right? That's not fair, right? I would
No,
never come down.
and that's kind of the exact opposite. I think we
Yeah.
need to do more of that, Gary.
Okay.
agree.
So-
All right. Well, I didn't want to blindside anybody, and certainly I didn't speak with the mayor to say something like that. I would want to speak with the mayor to how do we roll this out or whatever. So for that reason,
Right.
please understand, I'm not trying to hold back anything. He says I want to
Gary,
stick
we're
to the
not solving
script.
any of this stuff.
No.
Yeah, I just wanna
appreciate
stick-
that. I
okay.
don't mean to
All
put
right.
you on the spot in that
No,
regard,
yeah,
and
but-
if you feel that way, I apologize. I just want to, NIPD's $199,000,
Yeah, it's a lot of
right?
money, yeah.
You're losing staff,
Yeah.
and if part of your staff that is not here could be supported by those types of fees because they're responsible for helping to administer this. And I'm not saying that the council would ever, or the administration would ever pursue that, right? I'm just saying that to me, it's worth the conversation, right? If we're not aware of it and we don't know about it, we can't say yes or no.
Sure.
And I have the opportunity right now to bring up stuff like I just happened to think of, and I wrote down stormwater fee when you were talking, so that's why I brought it up. That's all.
No worries, Deb. So have we had, absolutely, we've had conversations in house, absolutely have, yeah.
Yeah, we're not asking for you to kind of, give us a look behind the curtain, but I think it's good for us, especially as we're crafting a budget message as we go. What are some of the areas we should be looking at, right? Because it's a fluid situation we're dealing with. It's constantly changing. So if we can look and at least start thinking about what are some of the other revenue streams, not asking for you to
Okay.
commit to anything or fix anything tonight,
Okay.
right? But I think.
Or I would have come more prepared too, had I known, so.
Yeah, Gary, you're always prepared. I mean, you're gonna forget more about planning than most will ever know, so don't
Oh, well.
worry about that. Deb, any other questions?
I don't, thank you.
Just a quick question, Gary, and
Yes.
if this starts to delve into the lane of speculation, just tell me. But I'm just curious: do you see anything happening at the state level to make things easier in terms of applying for grants, administering grants, in terms of the bureaucratic process there? Because obviously, like these are a lot of different projects, right, on this list here in terms of pending grant projects and constantly having to to be involved in finding these, applying for them, administering them. For example, and I know it hasn't passed, but the Mass Ready Act. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mass what?
Ready Act, the environmental bond bill. But
Yeah, I heard about it.
yeah, I mean, so my understanding is it's seeking to streamline some of that process for municipalities and provide more funding for vulnerability preparedness and things along those lines. Do you see that having any sort of material effect if those things, if that legislation or similar things pass like that at the state level?
Sure, absolutely. Whether this materializes or not, let's step back. Some of that's already happened. One is called the One-Stop Shop Portal. There could be 10, 15 different places you'd have to go looking to apply for a grant application. It's all pretty much all bundled up into one. They made the application process, everything's online. Before, you had to download, fill that out mechanically. I mean, sometimes I look through my old files and, back in the day there was a grant program, 2 grant programs. One was called Self-Help and the other was called Urban Self-Help. Those have now morphed into, Self-Help is now called Land, and Urban Self-Help is now called PARC, P-A-R-C. And it's mind-boggling when I look back to what we had to mechanically pull together a grant application to assemble it. Forget about emailing, we had to drive it up to Boston, drop it off, get a receipt, and come back. Talk about killing the whole day just to do that. What's happened at the state, they are incredibly responsive. I will tell you that. At least my experience with state staff, phenomenal. My experience with federal grant administrators, phenomenal. It takes a couple of days to get back because heaven knows how many emails they're getting, but they're very responsive. So the grant application process is easier in that pretty much one stop. I'm not going to say across the board for every grant application, depending on whether or not we're pursuing an environmental grant or a land use grant, planning and land use. They're a little different, but they're kind of combined into a couple of portals, so that makes it easier. The application process is easier, the filling out because it's online. And everything thereafter, the reporting, whether it's monthly reporting, quarterly reporting, reimbursement packages, it's all done online now. So, so it's streamlined. Now, whether or not, Council, that has an immediate material effect on my department, I can't say, but it would have to. How I would measure that, I don't know. But it certainly will, and I think it has. It certainly has. I think, and the optics are in the accomplishments here because the number of grants we've been administering and getting. So it had to have helped, and I only see it getting that much better. But if you were to ask me, can I quantify that in terms of staff hours? I suppose I could. It would take a while. I mean, I have to backtrack and calculate what we did. So I hope you don't ask, but I will tell you. Well, but I will tell you.
Next question.
Yeah, I will tell you. It has had an impact, and I could see it getting even more streamlined. The state on this. I mean, everything is going more electronic. We just finished the digitization grant that the mayor was able to secure $150,000 I mean, if you have walk next time, and folks, if you want to stop in the office, I think we cleared out 20 file cabinets. Everything is on something half the size of this now. And it is our hope, and I've had discussions with Mason, the Director of Budget and Administration, now taking the second step after the digitization, where all of our planning board, zoning board, and conservation commission files are now all digitized. It's just a matter of going onto the Y drive, pulling it up. You just click in the either a plat number, if you know the applicant's name, the street, whatever, pops up immediately. Phenomenal. Instead of pulling out files, you have to close other file cabinets. I mean, if you ever saw my file cabinet, I'd have to walk sideways because you just couldn't open files in there, right? So that's done. That's accomplished. That's in the review mirror. The next step to that, and again, staff, we've had several discussions in-house. We've already met with a couple of consultants. And I've asked, and I've spoken with Mason, is now I'd like to go online application filing, digital. And the tentacles kind of went out where we've also spoken with the building commissioner's office, the city clerk's office, and at some point, certainly the administration, I will tell you this, the mayor has mentioned this numerous times. I mean, Debbie can attest to this at department head meetings, is what can we do to be more efficient? What can we do to be more productive? And what could the administration do to help us with technology to get to that point? And so I took her up on that, and we pursued a couple of companies that we looked into that would provide software. And of course, there's going to be a little hardware, but software for online permitting. So again, to start with these packages that are coming in here, some site plans, as you know, come in like maybe packages of 2 or 3 sheets. But you stack up 15, 20 of those, they're this high, let alone the ones that come in like 35 plan sheets. So, less waste on paper. Is there a cost associated with that for going digital? Well, of course there is. But it's the opportunity cost. What are we gaining ultimately by being more efficient by going digital? So kind of a long answer, but to answer your question, yes, I think it's gotten easier. Research to find the grants is easier. Filling out the grant applications. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's easier. And the administration is easier. Again, it's not easy. To me, as Debbie said, writing the grant application and filing it is like the tip of the iceberg. The work is underneath the water. So it is easier, but it's still not easy. But that's what you pay us for. And then, like I said, so yes. And again, I think the forensics are shown in what we've accomplished in FY26. And then just another step out from that, a digression, is if we could go digital with the filing, that would be really, really, and just it's the convenience to the public. It's really the convenience. I'm talking about what staff has to go through. That would be so convenient for the public. Asking questions online. I mean, they do it now with email or a telephone call. Come to the window. You could still do that, of course. We're not saying that cuts all that out. But to have those dialogues, to have department heads critique site plans digitally right on the screen instead of memos going back and forth, making photocopies or blueprints, marking those up. Sometimes you can't make out what the department head wants. I just think it's going to be very streamlined. And again, from a customer service perspective, I would like to think that the public would embrace that.
Additional questions for Gary? One thing I want to say before we move on from the grants, just to put in perspective, Gary, my quick calculations, status of the 9 projects you talked about, grant funded,
Yeah.
it's about $1.2 million in grants that we've received for important projects.
Okay.
And without those grants, we wouldn't be able to get these important projects done potentially. So I think it shows the importance of the work that your office does.
Thank you.
Additional questions, concerns for the city planner? All right.
So,
Off the
folks,
hook.
all right.
You're off
Thank you
the
very
hook,
much,
Jay.
everybody. Okay. See you soon.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
Yep, take care, folks. See you tomorrow, Deb.
I'll be here, Gary.
Entertain a move for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are in recess. We'll return at 6:50.
Good night, everybody.
At 6:49. We're moving along. We will go to the school department, so come on down. Oh, we'll have a seat at the table. Watch. You sure?
I'll talk.
All right. If allowed.
If allowed.
If allowed.
On the my apologies.
Kidding, of course.
School department.
So, it's page 100.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So what we've been doing is just giving the department heads the opportunity to talk a little bit about what their budget, what's changed, any significant increases, decreases, any accomplishments, anything that you think the council should know. So, the floor is yours.
Awesome.
And welcome.
Thank you. I think I've met everyone, but if not, my name's Brittany Perella, the Director of Finance. So I know we've gone over this at our level service meeting in December, but we're keeping everything this year, level services. We're not doing any increases. We're not adding any new positions. It's just maintaining the programs and the staffing that we have this year into FY27. We're not introducing any new curriculum or anything like that. We're just gonna monitor what we have going on right now, and then check back and see if there's anything new that we would be able to do in the upcoming years, just because of the budget, the way it is right now. As we have mentioned in those meetings before, our budget is 80% salaries. It's about 17% is contractual, and then we have about 3% that's discretionary. So within our contractual is things like special ed tuitions, transportation, any of the facilities maintenance, that kind of stuff is all within that. We have one more year of those contracts, and then we go back out to bid for any of the facility maintenance stuff next spring. So there's not a lot of wiggle room with that. It's just trying to maintain status quo and keep the staffing the way we have it. The administration did propose to reduce our budget by about $150,000, which would mean that we would have to, we have a retirement coming up this year, so we wouldn't be refilling that position. We would leave it vacant. And then we would have to do a little bit of reduction to our supply lines just to bridge the gap.
All right. So can you talk a little bit about, because we do have some new counselors and
Yeah.
counselors, can you talk a little bit about what's net school spending, what's non-net school spending, and just what are some of the things that go into that?
Yeah, so net school spending is only allowed for any of like our student activity, like classroom activity type of things. Any of our teacher salaries, that kind of stuff is paid through net school spending. The state allots, it's about 55% comes from state aid, and then 45% is the city contribution, but it's like a mandatory formula that you guys have to contribute to fund our schools. So it's I guess a state mandated amount that we have to hit to fund the schools at a minimum, and then anything over that is great. But the state says that the net school spending is the cost it takes to educate a student.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about, I know there's different transportation constraints. Can you talk a little bit about, do we have to worry about out-of-district transportation, special education transportation, things of that nature?
Yeah, so we have a few different types. So we have the regular like yellow bus transportation that transports our students to and from school. And then we have special ed transportation. So anybody that has in their IEP or the 504s that says that they need specialized transportation in a van or in a minibus, if they need special harnesses, that kind of thing, they can't go in the big yellow bus. They have to have a specialized van for that. So that's contracted through companies like Vanpool. We have someone else called Beyond, and they provide those services. So that's both in district for students that still go to our classrooms and our programs within the district, and then for anybody out of district that Attleboro Public Schools can't provide the level of services that they need. They go to a out of district placement. We would pay tuition for them to go there, and we pay for the transportation also. So it's not something that we can predict based on like what we know today. But things can change. Students can move into the district. Students could qualify for services throughout the year as their IEP evaluations come up. So it's definitely a fluid budget, and it's something that we're mandated to do. It's part of the law that we have to provide those services. So it's up in the air, and it increased about like 10-12% this year. So it's not something that we can really plan for in that kind of regard.
So thank you for that. So it's a moving target every year,
Yeah.
and we never know exactly what it is.
Exactly.
The other thing we hear an awful lot about is McKinney-Vento. Can you talk a little bit about what is McKinney-Vento? What impact could that have on the budget?
Yep, so McKinney-Vento is any of our foster students or homeless students that live in Attleboro or may become homeless at that time, or anybody that is in foster care that would need any sort of transportation services, that kind of thing. We do have a grant that helps a little bit, but it's not significant. And then there's state funding that comes in for the McKinney-Vento, but again, it's at depending on what the economics are in the city. If people end up losing their housing in that capacity, and then there's more students that way, or if there's an influx from any of the like migrant students that have come through our districts, that also comes to our budgets, and it's something that we have to provide.
And again, state mandated.
State mandated, yes.
So I think when Brittany, when you bring up the breakdown of your budget, 97% is either salary or contractual.
Yes.
So it's not, because I know that, I think this year, and Deb, keep me honest, we're looking at 62, almost 63% of the city budget is education.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you guys are going out and saying, hey, we're gonna get everything we need under the sun. And I think
Right.
it's still kind of, and when you talked about level services, you're not adding, you're not decreasing. I think that's important for people to know.
Yes, absolutely.
Deb, anything that you want to bring up, anything?
So, Student Opportunity Act, fiscal 27 is the last year, right?
Yep.
Of that. Any thoughts on what that's gonna do to you guys in 28, or we're not there yet?
We're still kind of going through exactly what the impacts are going to be. We're starting to try to transition anything that we can identify ahead of time to kind of be everyday services that we're providing. But we have to kind of dig into that a little bit more and see where we're going to land with that impact.
Going back to transportation just for a moment,
Mhm.
the budget that's here of the 6.4 million
Yes.
is, I believe fiscal 27 is the last year of your current contract with the
Correct.
transportation.
Yep.
So fair to say 28 is going to be potentially, unless there is some way to adjust the scope of the potential bid, to have cost savings, which I don't know how realistic in a transportation
Yeah.
contract year that's going to be. The 6.4 is, for everybody, just quick synopsis, right? That's the general fund portion. What was authorized in the sped stabilization, about 800 this year?
Mhm.
$800,000 on, more than that is being charged potentially to the sped stabilization, restricted to sped transportation, like only transportations for special education students. And then the school, you also have a revolving fund
Mm-hmm.
that absorbs about 100 and
I want to say 150.
50?
Yeah.
right, off the top of my head,
Yeah.
of transportation. So the $6.4 million here is only a small portion of the expenses that are related to transportation. Transportation, in my opinion, while not quite as big a budget buster in the future as health insurance, school transportation costs they're going up. It's my understanding that the state is starting to take a look at that, right?
Yeah.
For some, but that's something that the council needs to be very aware of, on a go-forward basis. And it is one of the contracts that historically, when the school bids that contract, it's a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options to renew at the discretion of the school, which will require a vote of the municipal council, because under chapter 30B, any contract that extends beyond 3 years, the council has to essentially approve. So 27 is the final year of the Bloom contract.
Yep.
Sodexo as well, I think.
Sodexo, Whitson's.
And Whitson's.
Yep.
So 27 is the last year that we know some very large contracts will have to be scoped and bid during the fiscal 27 year, and potentially will have some significant impact in 28.
Yeah, when discussing with some of the school business officer peers, their increase for transportation was 25 to 40%, just because of the way that transportation bids go. For whatever reason, there isn't a ton of people that go in and bid against each other, so it's really tough, and we're seeing it across the state.
So, I mean, that's a significant cost that's coming. Obviously, HR was here the other day. Brittany, I do not have the details in front of me, but as a percentage of your net school spending general fund budget, ballpark health insurance for everybody, please.
I want to say it's like 15%, 10%, something like that.
So just to give the council just a perspective, I mean, it's a substantial cost. And I'm just curious because obviously under your department's proposed changes for the current year budget is the execution of the successor collective bargaining agreements across employee groups, including updated multi-year salary schedules. Do you anticipate that? And so you have within your budget, you've in theory built into your budget the cost and your services for fiscal 27 that you're projecting include what you believe the contracts will settle at?
Yeah.
Okay. The only other thing that I think is, my office works with Brittany and central office staff. Certainly we participate in discussions with One Budget, One City and that kind of stuff, but under the department's proposed changes for the current year budget, I do think it's worth noting there's some pretty substantial CTE programs and grants that the school has a lot of grants, right? The school has a lot of grants, they do a lot of programs, and there's a lot of stuff in addition to their regular budget that they accomplish over there. But the CTE programs, some of what the CTE programs and some of the evening grants that the school is doing over there also provide opportunities for some revenue to come back within the district to help absorb some other things. But they have a lot of expenses over there that you don't see here. And three big things that are going to hit in 28: transportation, maintenance, and I missed the last one, transportation, maintenance, and food service. Food service is offset typically because it's from a revolving fund, but that is a big contract, and that's a big lift for the school to operate that program as well, just to keep that in mind. I mean, we could realistically spend hours talking about your budget, but those are things that I think the council needs to know because those contracts will affect them. My understanding, the school contract, though, has to be vetted and approved by a state agency before execution, no matter what.
Yes, for those
the
food
culinary,
services,
I think I said transportation, I apologize.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Every year, we have to do it every year.
I can't think of anything else specifically.
Can you just talk a little, Brittany, about what the Bristol Aggie High School debt assessment is? I know we've talked about it a couple of years. How many years do we have left on it? Is that, and what exactly is it for those that might not know?
So Bristol Aggie was building or upgrading their schools in some capacity, so we have to take a portion of it because we send students to them. There's still some programs over there that Attleboro doesn't offer, so we're still going to be sending students to that program. So to help offset their debt, we also have to contribute to that. So that's what that is for there.
Directly related to the number of students that the district sends. So each student, so within the school department budget, there are tuition costs by county collaborative tuition. There's another collaborative that there's some sped related costs for tuitions, and then there's also other collaboratives and tuition assessments. So those are tuition related costs are within the school department's budget. It's a net school, those expenses are net school spending eligible. So that's within the $110 million that the school gets on their side of the budget. The debt payment, that's an assessment based on the upgrade. And if we didn't have any students there in fiscal '28, that line item would go away.
Yep.
And if we had 13 kids go in '29, it would be whatever their debt assessment is for the year, divided by the number of students, and then apportioned throughout the participating districts. So that number is on the city side as an intergovernmental, as opposed to on the school side. That is not a net. So capital expenses like that are not eligible under net school spending. I shouldn't say capital, I should call it a debt expense, because it's a clearer and as is all of the 59 expenses below that. All of the money that's paid for debt-related expenses to the school are not eligible expenses for net school spending, so that's why they're carved out separately. The only other thing that is a little bit different, I think this year, going forward, the amount requested for the school appropriation Medicaid, that has to do with the Medicaid sharing agreement, and then after fiscal year 26 closes, and all revenues and expenditures related to that program are trued up, what would happen is my office would send to the administration and the municipal council, this is how much money we owe the school for those programs, and that went up this year modestly to the beginning of the year to 120 for them. So.
Any thoughts or comments? I know earlier in the term we did the joint resolution between the administration, the schools, and the council. Any thoughts or anything that you want to put forward as it relates to the state formula, the state aid formula, and Chapter 70?
Yeah, so I know we put together the collaborative between the school committee and you guys, and I appreciate all the work that went into that. I definitely think if we can get some of those to push through, specifically the SPED reimbursements that were in there, because we're even at where we're at now, we're not getting the full reimbursement back. So we would like to see at least that kind of go through. But if I know they're looking at Chapter 70 a little bit more deeply in the upcoming years, and I know it's going to be a long transition before we actually see any sort of change. But I think that the way that the city contribution is calculated needs to be adjusted based on how you guys can afford, like with the revenue and everything, how that's happening. We definitely need to take a look at that. So I think if we can push something like that forward and we can get something moving there, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so thank you for your support on that, because I think it's important that, we started the conversation, I think, in January,
Yeah.
February. The ship's already sailed for 27, but I
Yeah.
think it's a conversation we need to collectively, our bodies need to stay on top of, working with the state delegation. You brought up another good point about the special ed reimbursements. Correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't at one point like up to 75% reimbursement?
So you can, like right now the max is 75%,
Yeah.
we're only getting 61%. So like we should at least be getting up to that 75
Yeah.
because we have so much going on within our special ed departments that would be super helpful to just maintain special ed and not feel like we're on fire all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to realize that, it's up to 75%, and we're
Right.
getting 61%. So.
Right.
Okay. Additional questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Tavares?
Can you speak just the line items that that are tagged AHS issue? There's like 8 of them. Like some of them are have a numerical number after, like 1 through 4.
Would you like me to help?
That would be great because I'm not sure about that.
Debt. So those,
Okay.
so when each tranche of debt was issued as it relates to the debt exclusion, we numbered those so that as payments are made, the city treasurer and I could identify which those were. So the first issue, AHS issue 1, 2, it's ordinal in nature there. The other related things, so the pay down excluded debt, the very bottom number, that $205,115 is related to the last piece of debt for the high school construction that has not gone long-term. We're at the point where it's been out there short for so long, we have to make principal payments. That interest on the temporary debt exclusion, the number right above that, that also has to do with, obviously, the high school, and those two lines at some point, in theory, right, will become AHS issue number 5, if we have to actually borrow the last tranche of temporary, if we have to do permanent financing on that. The hope, honestly, right now, is that what we'll receive in reimbursement after closeout from the audit from MSBA is that we will not have to go long-term, because they're doing a 5% holdback of the overall amount that the state contributed toward the project. So the only reason that the numbers are there is it has to do with when the issues occurred. Like the school environmental, that is the ESS system, that's what it's called, right? The environmental system. The middle school roof is Warmsutta, Brennan and Warmsutta. Those, the gym floors were the other pieces. So the debt is, the naming convention is so that on the, what Laura refers to as the debt Bible, we can track and trace everything. If you were to add up everything related to the Attleboro High School debt issue here, which are the 4 items for AHS, along with the interest on temporary debt exclusion and the pay down on excluded debt, you would, that would equal the amount that's outside of the levy and added to, on page 10, Mason has it displays on property tax debt exclusion, then the $6.9 million there, and then the premium to reduce the debt exclusion is because when we last issued temporary debt in the fall of '25, the city received an $18,532 premium, which by statute that changed in December of 2022 must be used towards the next debt payment. So that's net of those numbers. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. And so, if I may.
Please.
So I understand the naming convention. So, but some of these are, so do these represent, so when it says AHS issue 1 and it's connected to, there's 2 different line items for that, right?
Yep,
Like that are
principal and
different
interest,
accounts.
591.
Oh, principal and, okay,
Yep.
so each, okay, got it, got
Yep,
it. Sorry, I missed that, you probably said that
Yep, I
earlier.
probably
Got it, so
didn't
each
say
one.
that.
Okay.
So, 591, in the general ledger, anything that starts with the first group of numbers, the 1, 300, 1,000, tells me it's the general fund. 300 tells me it's the school. The 1,000 is just filler because it's an 8-digit string in the system, and then the next group of numbers are what's referred to as an object, and anything that starts with a 59 is related to debt, and anything that's 591 here in the city is related to principal, and anything that's 592 is related to interest. So that's how you could kind of tell, and those numbering conventions are consistent across all of the communities in the Commonwealth. So if I grabbed a budget from another community, I should be able to, in theory, tell a number of what they're doing as well. So that's what it is. The first piece is the principal. The 592 piece that goes with the AHS issue 1 is the interest portion.
Got it. And then also just for, if I may, Councilor Lucio,
We have all we need.
just for the benefit of the residents, when is that principal intended to be paid down, or the maturity on those, for those first 4 line items?
So, I don't know if I have Laura's schedule with me. I may not.
Or just roughly?
30 years from the date of issue, and we started issuing prior to construction. I want to say the vote passed in March of 2018.
Yes.
Sound right?
You're correct.
All right. So in March of 2018, the vote
21,
passed.
22 years.
Prior to the vote of 2018, eligible for reimbursement from the MSBA was the approximate, I'm not going to get this number right, but I'm going to say $2.5 million for feasibility and that kind of stuff. That's not in here because that's not excluded debt. The city took that on itself. We did like maybe a $40 million tranche. Then we were issuing paper in the pandemic. We actually were gonna go to market in the spring of 2020, and there was no market for issuing debt. So we actually didn't issue again until the fall of 2020, which actually ended up to be quite fortuitous because the rates dropped like a stone. And we got, I believe, the treasurer got pretty good rates on that, and that was, I think, an $80 million tranche is what she did then. So I think it was 40, 40, 80, and the very first one was probably about 12. If I had to guess, I'm gonna see if I'm right tomorrow. I'm gonna say it was 12, 40, 80, maybe 40. I think those were the four. So each one, I believe, was issued for 30 years. So it's going to be a long time, but as Mason said the other day, we believe we've hit the high of that. I don't think that we're gonna have to issue the temporary debt that's presently related to this. I do believe that most of that will be covered by the MSBA, unless there's substantial things within the project that are excluded, that they reject. I don't anticipate that. I could be completely wrong, but I think that we'll be relatively okay there. So we should be kind of trending down going forward. But it's a long time. Yeah, it's a very long time.
Thank you.
How's that? Okay. All right, Brittany, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Mr.
you.
Lawson. Beyond me.
Borrow a few of your minutes of time. As you and Brittany have spoken already about, we have a number of issues that are going to be challenges going forward to fund special ed, transportation, health insurance. My concern for funding, I mean, the city's looking at a $2.5 million budget shortfall this year, of which 900 and change we're going to use free cash. I hate that idea, just from a financial point of view. I know that's what we're going to have to do. There's layoffs that are going to make off the difference of that. My concern in the paper that I gave you, if health insurance continues to go on and we can't do something to get a hold of that, between that and some of these other costs, we're going to go from a $2.5 million shortfall to 5 to 7 or 8 to 10. So you're not going to be able to free cash our way out of this. We're going to be closing departments. I know that was talked about a few months ago, and that went over really big, I know. There's going to be more layoffs. So I guess my request, and this is, obviously I'm from the school point of view, but also from Attleboro point of view, Attleboro has some serious challenges ahead of itself. And we all have to find a way to work together. I'm not sure we can do it by ourselves. I'm not sure the state's going to do anything to help us. It would be nice. But I think realistically, I know we have a habit of only looking at the 1 year that's in front of us. But as the paper that I just gave the chairman shows, the school department's health insurance will be roughly 20% of our budget in 5 years. It's currently 15. I can't tell you what's going to happen when we get to that, but I can tell you that it's not going to be good. I can also tell you I don't know how to fix that. But I think we all need to do whatever we can do, because I want to take this opportunity to just, I hate to rain on parades, but because you guys all got wet last weekend. But we have to do a better job to educate the citizens of Attleboro of what is coming at them, because we can't do what happened 2 months ago, surprise them, have everybody do what they did, get ourselves in the situation that we're in next year, because it's going to happen next year, and it's going to happen the year after, and we just need to keep talking about it. We need to do whatever we can together. I mean, I will go wherever you want, help you out. If somebody's got a great idea, let's do it. But I think for the sake of, obviously we're talking about education, but I think we have to look beyond that, look at Attleboro, because we're all Attleboro. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chairman.
No, I appreciate it. Do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Lawson? Mr. Angelo?
Thanks, Councilor DeCio. I don't know if it's a question or more of a comment, but, you know, we both come from the industrial world, business sector and everything, and you know there's a certain way that you would handle it as being a business owner, and, you know, I have in the past, and me helping to develop, you know, companies as my career has progressed and everything and stuff, so maybe, maybe we all gotta get together and have a good discussion about it, and sit down and take some side to side, and really look at this as more of a business perspective versus a municipality perspective, which I know that's always, the two are different, but still, you almost need that business knowledge to add in there to the municipality. So maybe we need to do that in the future.
Well, you know, we've had a few of these discussions at One City, One Budget, and I've been reminded that what you and I can do in the private sector, we can't do in the public sector. And that's maybe something that needs to be looked at. Why can't we?
Yeah,
But, you know,
absolutely.
changing legislation is not something I think you and I can do,
Yeah.
especially short term.
Yeah, and as you know, I'd much rather have a little less, but still have a job, you know.
Oh,
you know,
there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but my concern is I don't think we talk enough about it publicly, and I don't want to see what happened this past spring happen next spring, and the spring after that, because nobody seemed to think that they knew. So,
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, and Bill, you've been in front of us before talking about this very subject. I know, as Deb alluded to, we had Lynn down here last week talking about it. This is very real, and it's gonna take collaboration. There's some challenges, you're right, in the public sector, you know, versus the private sector. We have CBAs. We have other contractual obligations that could provide certain set of challenges. So it's gonna take conversation, you're right. We've gotta put politics behind us and just take a look at where we're at. And these numbers, and I'll make a copy of this and put it in everyone's mailbox, staggering, you know, and that's just the schools.
that's just ours.
That's just
Yeah.
the schools.
But, you know, as it's been said, we're 63%, so you can basically take what's gonna happen to us, it's gonna happen to Attleboro.
Yep.
I mean, and like I said, we are all Attleboro.
And to
Yeah.
Councilor Angelo's point too, I mean, we're seeing this same squeeze in the public sector as well,
Oh, yeah.
the private sector, so. But, all right, additional questions, thoughts, concerns? Mr. Waterman?
So I am no expert in health insurance, to start this. My health insurance, I'll just give you our example, my wife and me. My wife taught in Framingham, and so we get benefits from Framingham. And they changed from Blue Cross to, was it G, it starts with a G. Help me out.
GIC?
GIC, yeah. And they apparently saved a lot of money. And we're still able to only pay a quarter of our health insurance. And I don't know if anybody's looked into other forms of health insurance, but are we permanently
I believe it has,
wedded?
and I believe they continue to look at that.
Yeah.
Lynn talked about that, Mr. Waterman, as
Yeah.
did Mason when he's been in front of us a couple different times. So but I agree with Mr. Lawson, this has to be a component of a bigger and more consistent conversation, because, you know, you came down a few months ago and, you know, you opened our eyes, and I think we need to continue to discuss this.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you as always, Bill. All right.
I think the health insurance dialogue needs to be frequent and continuous, so that the council is aware of where we are and what's happening with that. So Linda Mason mentioned some of the things that, you know, the avenues they can pursue, which are the differences, right, between public and private sector.
Sure.
But there's other things that I think we should have a discussion on, to say, like, in the future, what can happen.
Yeah, I think
It needs to happen. Right?
It has to
Because
happen, agreed.
It has to happen.
Yep.
And it's
And
been
I-
a long time coming. I'm sorry.
No.
The other thing too, right, we are self-insured. We have a self-insurance trust fund. That is part of the consideration. I can tell you that for years, the city has utilized that trust to potentially subsidize rates. Last year, they provided a free week, right? The value of a free week. The employee or participant enjoyed that benefit. The city enjoyed that benefit. But realistically, I mean, you're not gonna have that. And some of those things are difficult to, like the last couple of years, the cost of certain drugs and medications, right? They go up exponentially. I mean, it's just that how health insurance costs are going up are just outpacing all estimates that we had 5 years ago. We have, I don't know if they've done it recently, but in the past, we have done benchmarks of our plans and cost of our plans to the state GIC and the plan and the cost, and we were better here. I don't know long-term what that would happen, but then there's also other considerations for what we need to do for post-employment health insurance benefits and stuff, in my opinion, which I think I'll share with the council at a later date, so that, Mr. Larson said, you know what, we can't change legislation. It might come to that, right? We might need to do home rule petition for something to say, what's really in the best interest of the community. So,
Well stated, Deb.
none of which are gonna be popular
Right.
necessarily, right? But, we do receive a good benefit as an employee. I'm an employee, a long-term employee of the city, right? In theory, I could retire, right? And I would enjoy health insurance, right? I think that's a benefit that we need to be consistent with our peers, other communities, because if we don't offer that, who's gonna work in Attleboro, right? Like, so you have to consider that, but the consideration needs to be long-term of like, what's truly affordable.
So, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Christie.
Hi.
Okay, recreation on page 126. So, first of all, Christie, thank you for coming down, thank you for your flexibility. Sorry about the wires being crossed last night.
That's all right.
What we're doing is just having you talk a little bit about your budget, what you think is important for us to know, any additions, any increases, decreases, anything that you want the council to know.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So first, I just really want to thank the mayor, Mason, and the team for all of the work that they put into navigating the budget this year. It's obviously a very difficult year, and recreation is certainly feeling it, taking our hit. We're essentially level funded. The primary change is the elimination of the assistant director position as part of the fiscal 27 reductions. And first and foremost, I want to acknowledge Tim for his 13 years of service to the department and the community. His institutional knowledge and operational support is definitely going to be missed. It's been nice to have that as I learned the municipal side of the world, coming from the nonprofit world for so long. And I do also want to acknowledge that in the time that he has left, he is doing his best to get us as organized as possible for what is our busy season, helping me get it up and running before he does get left. So it says a lot about his character, and I just wanted that acknowledged.
Tim's top notch,
Yeah.
top notch.
So for the loss of the assistant director position, it's really going to, we're going from a department of 2 to a department of 1. So that's much different than going from a department of 5 to a department of 4. So operationally, there's going to be a significant shift as I get my feet back under me. He primarily handled the coordination of the after-school and summer programming, the onboarding of seasonal staff. We obviously shared administrative operations, but he did handle the accounts payable. So I will be absorbing quite a bit of that, all of it. But I do want to acknowledge that my first year in, I've been here 2 years now, my first year in the department lost a full-time labor position too. We had a reduction my first year in. And over the last year and a half, our foreman and I we've intentionally focused on improving efficiencies through equipment purchases that take a crew of 3 people down to a crew of 1 person, and you're getting more work done with less people with the equipment that we're purchasing. So if you look back at the stuff that we've bought, we've really been successful in that area. So now I just have to shift and look at that mindset administratively. So one of the things that was already in the works and is technology upgrades. We last year went from all of registration and program payments, everything is all paper and manual, check, cash. Last year I took us onto Unibank, which was significant, more convenience for the residents, but it's not a software program, so it is very limited in what type of programs you can put on there. So I've spent the last 6 months looking into the different CRMs, the customer relationship management systems, and we will be implementing RecDesk in the new fiscal year. And it's even more important now with the staff reduction. It's really going to help streamline program registration, payment processing. I can put my facility rentals on there, scheduling, reporting, and even the participant communication. A lot of it's going to be streamlined. So I'm really looking forward to understanding the full capabilities of it and using that to help identify exactly what the operational support needs will be. There is a recognition from the administration that having one person run the show isn't really sustainable, and they're open to discussions, but the tentative plan right now is to evaluate throughout the summer to see exactly what is needed. Do I need program support or do I need clerical support? It's going to be challenging to get through the summer by myself, but I've already looked at adding some responsibilities to some of the seasonal staff. We do have a pool coordinator and an all-day summer program coordinator that's coming back that were with us last year. So I've already met with them to talk about some additional responsibilities to help me out as I onboard the RecDesk program. So in the fall, we'll start the conversations again about what might we need. Is it seasonal? Is it a part-time person year-round? Not 100% sure yet. And we'd like to see a way, I'd like to build a way to just support that position through the revolving fund, because I know that once it's removed from the general fund, it's going to be really hard for me to get it back into the general fund. And we already have some additional revenue coming in from some of the programs that we've built over there over the last year. Keep hearing the word collaboration, shared resources. Obviously, that's even more important right now. I watched the Council on Aging and the library hearings and really appreciated hearing them emphasize the collaborative approach that we've built over the last few years. Yep. You know, coming from the world of the YMCA, I mean, that's what we did. We had to make things happen. So that's definitely the approach that I bring here. And over the last 2 years, we really have maximized resources, sharing ideas. We support each other in so many ways. We meet on a very regular basis. And I think that the programs that we've able to build for the residents complement each other better now than they used to, where we're not really duplicating efforts anymore. And while carving out that time is going to be more difficult now that I'm picking up a lot of administrative responsibilities that I wasn't doing previously, it's even more important. So we're definitely going to make sure that we continue to meet on a regular basis. One of the other areas, talking long-term, because again, we know that we're going to be facing another shortfall next year. Hopefully it's not as high as what's being forecasted, but I am looking at long-term facility sustainability and really looking around at, like, is there any low-hanging fruit for cost savings? And I started this is very early conversations, but I did bring it up with my commission to get it on the radar, and that's the Twin Village pool. The Twin Village pool is our oldest, it's our sleepiest. While it actually operationally runs the easiest, it's not somewhere where people go. We have maybe a handful of regulars, but it's where we funnel our camps to that purchase passes from us in the summertime. So Abacus, Robin's Children, they all go to that pool in the summertime. We can absorb those camps at Briggs and Spatcher. And if we looked at doing something at that pool in the next couple of years, we're going to have to make a decision on whether or not we invest in improvements at that site. There's infrastructure work that really needs to be done there. It's old and it's aging. I would recommend that we look at, I wouldn't want to lose an important amenity like that. I know what it was like when the city lost the pool at Lee's Pond. I would want to come up with a plan to convert it into a splash pad. You know, splash pads are easier to maintain. They're much less expensive. You can turn them on earlier. If we start a heat wave earlier, you can keep them on longer. You don't need lifeguards for them. You just need attendants. And it reduces a lot of the chemical and utility expenses. If we didn't have that pool, we would probably be able to run in the black with the other two pools. So that's, again, it's very early conversations, but I just wanted to like put it out there that I am looking at those type of things as what can we do in the future to not have to get rid of recreation, because I really don't want to go anywhere. And then, you know, finally, I really want to be transparent about special events. I know that the mayor has said it. I know that we've talked about it a couple of times, but large-scale events, while the community engagement manager position is housed in the mayor's office, that role has really provided some valuable support to recreation through collaboration on several city events that we've built together in the last 2 years. You know, the Fall Festival being one of them. Jay, you were there. You saw. I'm sorry, Councilor Delicio, you were there. You saw it was a really well-received event. Those are going to be tough to do. Yeah. And you know, my capacity to manage the operational day-to-day responsibilities of the department and special events is going to be difficult, particularly, yes, I'm going to say it, fireworks. I don't have the operational capacity moving forward to lead it. It's a strain already. So losing my assistant director and the support of the community relation engagement manager, I just don't see how it's possible. That being said, we did take the last 2 years building a flight plan. You know, we brought the event back, and in the plan with the committee right now is after the event to really sit down, see where we are. We're going to be raising money at the event this year with the added attractions. It's going to be a really fun event. I want to take the opportunity to make sure you all know you're invited. Please come. With all of the doom and gloom that's around us right now, we really are building a fantastic event. We're going to have a carnival. We have a live concert with 2 local bands. There's going to be some fun dunk tank activities that our own city council president and mayor will be involved in. But that being said, if it continues, it has to be more volunteer-led. And I think that we now, with the flight plan, could build very specific volunteer job descriptions and put together a committee if this is what the council and the administration wants moving forward with this event, if we want to have the event. It's not sustainable the way it is, though. So moving forward, like I said, my focus is maintaining the continuity of services, maintaining the quality of what we offer, and focusing on the day-to-day, and then really trying to evaluate what type of support I really need long-term in the department. And you have my narrative with the accomplishments over the last year and the objectives for this coming year. And where, like I said, we're pretty much level funded. There was only a small increase in the part-time staffing, and I split that between the general fund and the revolving fund, and I shifted some expenses around in the general fund to make sure that it stayed level funded. And then we reallocated some monies in the revolving fund to be able to support the implementation of the CRM. That's what I got for you.
All right. I appreciate your comments. Yeah, it's tall order.
Yeah.
Tall order. Deb, anything?
No, if you do have 1 minute when this wraps, so we can talk about what we discussed this morning, so I can move on that for you tomorrow.
Fantastic, yes.
Any questions for Christie?
Well, I just want to say thank you for your collaboration with the Council on Aging, and in particular with the tax program. That has been a wonderful situation, and it helps the senior center.
Yeah, the tax aid, for those who don't know the tax abatement folks, we have them. They are our attendance
No, I
Yeah.
meant the program to do senior taxes.
Oh, AARP, the taxes downstairs, the tax aid program, okay, I thought you
Correct.
meant tax abatement.
Yeah.
We collaborate on both.
On both?
Yes, absolutely. It's
great.
Yeah, we've been hosting the tax aid program for the last 2 years at the rec center, and it's lovely to have them in the building. There's more parking, there's more space for them to move around. I'd love to figure out a way to engage them a little bit more while they're in the waiting room area, and how do we activate that space? Because there is just a lot of sitting right now, but.
I don't know if you guys all know, but basically, we have some really good trained people, and the taxes are free
Yeah.
to that
It's a
program.
wonderful program, and it's busy.
Yeah.
It's busy.
Council Morrissey?
Hi. I was just wondering, are the pools strictly for Attleboro residents?
Briggs Pool, which is our neighborhood pool, that one is strictly Attleboro residents only. Spatcher Pool is open to everyone. There's a different rate for Massachusetts residents and outside Massachusetts residents. And then the Twin Village Pool is Massachusetts only.
Would that be something you could consider, like inviting people from Pawtucket to come use that pool, to utilize it if it
I've
is
spent the
that
last
slow?
couple of years evaluating like what the bather loads are in the pools and what could we do. The Twin Village Pool was Attleboro only, and we opened it up to Massachusetts to see if we could bring more people there. Briggs, I am hesitant on that one, opening up to Rhode Island, but potentially opening up to Massachusetts.
Well, but specifically if Twin Village is being underutilized, to open it to Rhode Island might just be a way to, at least this summer, get some additional income.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's not a zero entry pool, so it's not as attractive as the Briggs and Spatcher.
I don't know what that means.
Zero entry means you can like walk into it like you would a beach.
Okay.
This one, like you jump into it and it's 3 feet deep already.
Yeah, that's where I took my swimming lessons.
Michael?
Thanks, Councilor Delizio. Yeah, I understand with the Briggs one, because that's in a neighborhood, and then you'll have Councilor Blair all over you. So I get that one, because you would only have so much parking and everything, so I can understand how that probably should stay the way that one is. Where's the Twin Village one? Is that the South, is that the
Tilda
Dodgeville?
B, Dodgeville.
Dodgeville is Dodge. I've been here forever, been there a million times, and did not realize they call that Twin Village. And I've swum in it a million times. Okay, I get that one. That one, you get a lot more parking. That one makes sense and stuff, so I get
It
that.
would be a great splash pad.
Yeah, well.
A great site for
yeah.
that.
At some point, I'll have to show you some other thoughts on a splash pad extension. And I'll have to show you, but that would take a lot more work in the future, so we'll see. But yeah, all right, thank you. Appreciate it. Doing a great job, and it's been a pleasure you being in there and stuff, so.
Thank you.
Heard a lot of good things, so.
I've enjoyed it.
Anything else? Kids Fourth, is that gonna happen this year?
Kids Fourth absolutely is happening this year. Will I have you in the,
No, it.
as a grill master? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's, I actually just sent an email to the commission because I'm like, with all of the changes, a little stressful with the fireworks the night
Yeah.
before, going right into Kids Fourth Fun the next
Yeah.
morning, so. I'm recruiting, the commission is stepping up as well
Good.
and helping me out with a few initiatives this summer.
Awesome. Look forward to it. It's a great event that the public looks forward to
Yes,
every year.
absolutely.
So, all right. Chrissy, thank you. Keep
Thank
up the
you,
great
guys.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, just want to mention that we will be meeting again next Monday, June 1st at 5:30. June 2nd at 6 PM. We'll have the fire chief down. Then we'll just kind of vote out a few lingering items that are in committee. Then we go into public hearing, several public hearings, including public hearing for the budget. So thank you all for your participation thus far. We're getting there. We're getting there. That being said, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned at 7:43.